Hello, and welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ.
And I'm Chip.
And we have a show for you this week. Fall River is never a dull moment, and we can't write this stuff. I'm telling you, it's amazing. And we have some issues that we want to bring up right away. First off, we told you it here first on Straight Talk a few episodes ago, probably a few more than that, where we knew we weren't getting the SAFER grant. Well, it was announced this week by the mayor's office that we are not getting the SAFER grant. And so he's now looking and starting the process of laying off 60 firefighters. And it makes it rather interesting to see because the actions of the city council currently go contrary to what we're able to afford. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Chipper, what exactly happened here? I mean, the mayor said when he got the grant 2 years ago, we have to make good use of this grant. And we have to make sure we're prepared so that in 2 years, we're not again depending on a federal bailout. And he used the term bailout. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, obviously, he didn't prepare. There was absolutely nothing done to look for funds to pay for the firefighting in this city. As a matter of fact, in this year's budget, the number of firefighters that were funded by the city was reduced. So, if anything, we exacerbated the problem. We didn't look to solve the problem, and now we're left in a lurch. We're left in a situation where we have to lay off 60 firefighters, and in order to improve the safety for the firefighters and the public, we're going to have the awesome task of finding money in a budget that doesn't exist.
You know, it was really interesting because former Chief Ford wrote a letter or a commentary to the Herald News about working with 153 firefighters. And according to Chief Ford, the Herald News couldn't even publish it the way he sent it. They edited it to make it sound as though the city can work with 153 firefighters. Chief Ford's the only fire chief who's worked with 153 firefighters in Fall River, and he knew how difficult it was. And we weren't able to meet standards then, and he doesn't believe we're going to meet them now. But the Herald News went and presented that article and edited it as such, as though we've done it before and we'll do it again, which I think is unfair to Chief Ford and unfair to the people of Fall River. So it makes it very interesting to hear how this is happening. You know, I'm waiting for more information down. I mean, you've been vilified already, Chip, for supposedly taking a job with the mayor that you've said on this show last week, and you said last night at the city council meeting that you haven't accepted a job. Certain conditions had to be met, but they vilified you on Facebook and they're vilifying you everywhere. And how dare you ask for money to solve this problem?
Well, number one, as I said, I have not accepted it, and you know, the vilification doesn't bother me. If I do assist the city, I will not be working for the city. I will be working for the safety of the firefighters who respond every day, and for the safety of the public and the property. The fact is that I did propose a reorganization over 15 years ago. I am intimately aware of the fire department structures, and I have the experience over 25 years as a incident commander, as a chief, to know what it takes to fight a fire and have sufficient manning in this city. So the mayor, and I'm sure that it was very difficult for him because as he even said in a paper, I believe, I have not been his strongest supporter. If anything, I have been one of his most outspoken detractors. But as he said, this issue is bigger than both of us. If I can do anything to help make it safer in this city, I will do that. And for you out there who want to vilify me, I really don't give a shit. So go ahead. So that's not my problem. And if I'm going to be paid for my time is valuable. If you want to find a consultant with my experience, you're going to pay a lot more than they're going to probably offer me if they offer me anything. And I'm not even sure if I'm going to take it with the way the situation stands. But while we're on the subject, let me take a minute to explain something about 153 while I've already told the mayor and the council that 153 is not sufficient. The 1710 standard has a time standard for a number of people to respond to a fire. And they're talking about us being able to get the required number of people to the fire within the designated time. Let me give you an analogy which will make it, rather than try to explain the numerous things you have to do tactically and strategically at a fire to protect lives and property. It's a very complex operation, and you need the men to do it. And if they come in a fragmented manner, you can't execute those things in the most efficient way. So the analogy I use for the general public would be, let's say that we were going to play a football game, and you tell me that I'm going to get 11 guys over the 60 minutes of the football game. Well, if you start with 11 and I start with 5, and somewhere within the next hour I'm going to get the other 6 men, by the time I get my 11 men, I'm behind 72-0, and I've lost the football game. The fact is, unless we get a task force that can do all the operations there at almost the same time, there will be more property damage. There will be a greater hazard to life, and that's why 153 under any circumstances is not acceptable. And even if we shift men around, we will only be able to handle one incident, and that's it. And in this city, that's not acceptable.
You know, we just experienced in Boston a huge fire, and they brought people in from all over, including a full complement of their own fire department, and 2 firemen still died. I don't want to see something like that happen in Fall River, because when Fall River has a fire, it has a fire. It doesn't happen, small, because we have buildings which on average are 125 years old. They're old wood frame buildings. They're open. There's no fire stops anywhere. They're built with, they're now covered in vinyl siding or aluminum siding. So those things become a quick oven, and just poof, the timbers are dry. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the other reasons that Fall River is it's not unique, but it's like Lowell and Lawrence and these old mill towns. They present an extremely high fire hazard. Number one, we have mills, and when a mill goes, city blocks go. When a 3-decker goes that is so close to the other you can reach out your window and touch the other house, obviously you have the potential of that fire spreading and taking out 2 or 3 or 4 buildings. This is the reason at Fall River you can't equate the fire protection needed in Fall River with a bedroom community. If you have a fire in Somerset and you lose the house, you lose the house. In Fall River, if you have a fire in a house, you may lose a block. And that's why we need the adequate number of people to contain that fire, minimize property damage, and maximize our ability to protect lives.
If we had gotten the 16 firefighters that they talked about on the SAFER grant, that would have put us at 169 firefighters. Would that still be insufficient?
Well, yeah, it would be insufficient. It would be better. I think that first alarm response may be okay, but there's gonna be a necessity to change the number of men on the apparatus, the positioning of the apparatus, and how the men are utilized, in other jobs. But even with all that, the number of 153 is absolutely, and 160 is absolutely. This city is basically, as you said, a tinderbox. We have 100-year-old buildings. They're very close together. We have mills. We have a high fire hazard. And the reality is the National Fire Protection Association recommends 5-man crews as 100% effective, and recommends 5-man crews in high hazard areas. And virtually 75% of Fall River can be considered a high hazard area. And the reality is we run with 3-man crews, which are the most inefficient number.
I'm surprised there hasn't been more damage and more people hurt. But there you have it on the fire department. It's time for you to make it clear to your city council and your mayor that you want more firefighters. If they can find the money to fund a park, they can find the money for the firefighters. And now on to that subject. Last night, the city council, once again, violated chapter 44, I believe it is, of state law, which says that the money has to be used as you bond it for. And they're trying to sell it after the fact, saying, oh no, we can use it for the park, because the special ed kids are going to use the park. No, that's not the way it works. So I decided to throw a thorn into the side of this bush because the city council approved 9-0 last night to move the money that's left over from the construction of Morton Middle School to the park department to rebuild North Park. That's not a bad thing. I mean, the park is a wonderful thing. What is a bad thing is they've taken money that was bonded by the city for the school and was reimbursed at 80% from the MSBA. And so the MSBA is now paying for 80% of that park, which is illegal. So I called the state auditor's office and found out that even the citizens can't ask for an audit of this city. Only the city council and the mayor, and they have to pay for it. Unless there's illegal activity. So when I started rattling off the many number of things they've done, now they want to get involved. And they're going to the DOR, and they're going to get the Department of Revenue involved, and they're going to get the state auditor involved, and the Mass Attorney General. They're going to look at Fall River. Because we have got to stop thinking the law in Fall River is Fall River's law, and the law for everyone else is the Commonwealth's. Because that's what we think around here. It's amazing the ignorance that we have of our elected officials. I cannot believe what we see. It's unbelievable. Chip, I mean, you want to go up to him and say, excuse me, this is the law. As it is, we have to go up to him and say, don't you know the rules of order around here?
Well, obviously, they found a way to manipulate the law and interpret it to their benefit. Look, the reality is we set a bad precedent when we bonded a park. Now every time some neighborhood with somebody who's politically connected, a former city councilor, or 2 former city councilors, or 3 former city councilors come before and say, our neighborhood wants a park, we need a park. The city council, in their infinite lack of intestinal fortitude, and Caliones, for my Spanish-speaking people, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. The fact is that they find a way to placate these people. I have told them time and time again to look very closely at this budget, cut out all the fat, to put firefighters on the job. And frankly, I am incensed by the fact that they figured out a way to find money for a park, and they still haven't figured out a way to put one more firefighter on the job.
Well, obviously, fire safety isn't important to the city council.
Well, I think it's important they'll say it's important, but I think, unfortunately, the political considerations in this city transcend the realities of what we're doing, because it seems as though every time they always parade the ex-pals up here. When they wanted to build an access road to Bristol Community College, and there was some neighborhood resistance, who did they march in front of the city council after they tabled it? They marched former state senator
Joan
Menard. They marched a few ex-city councilors, and in this case, they had a state rep in the audience, and they had a former city councilor, and this is what they do. And it seems as though when that happens, and they bring a few people from the neighborhood to sit in, they look at them and go, oh God, look at all those votes. It's more important to get reelected than do the right thing. Well, I'm telling you again here, all of you, it is more important, and you were elected to run this city in the best interests of everyone, not a select few.
Well, it's interesting because just before they approved the vote for North Park, M. Earl Gaudette came up screaming just about that he wanted the city to take by eminent domain the former church property on the side of Maplewood Park, because that was park property before, and the church has got the property up for sale, and we should buy it and we should take it. And they actually considered taking it by eminent domain. We don't have the money for firefighters, but we're going to come up with money to take this land by eminent domain. They considered it. But the lawyers for the diocese already said, we're willing to meet with you, but we need to meet with you in May. I mean, everyone has a schedule. And the date wasn't that far away. It was only a couple of weeks. They were talking about the beginning of May. But we're talking about parks. Where's our priorities? We're talking about parks. We're talking about a school department, which is the biggest suck on the system, and it produces nothing. And then the school department came forward and said, we need to build a new school. Or we need to refurbish the school that we have, because we have all the, and they showed pictures and everything. It was wonderful. But MSB already said no. So that means the city's going to have to fund it totally. We can fund that. I think that's amazing, isn't it?
Well, it's well, it's amazing that I'm sure the pictures look good, but the pictures of Durfee High School looked good in the present Durfee High School's rendering with the original pictures. But as usual, this city can't build anything. It always amazed me how you can go to Las Vegas and they'll build a $1 billion casino in 1 year, and that casino will last for decades, and we can't build a school that can last for 10 years without ceilings falling down. Yet, again, as you said, rather than do what the state says and get funded, we're going to say, as usual, Fall River marches to the beat of a different drummer. We have our own laws. We make our own universe. Actually, I think we should secede from the state. We should be our own state.
Yeah, I think so too. The problem is we can't manage our own money now. Imagine what it would be like then. The last big thing that I have to bring up, because you have a big issue that I want to give you plenty of time for, is the CDA came before the council yesterday and spoke on how much money is spent where and where it goes. The CDA money is housing and urban development money, and that's a free grant, and the city gets to manage it. It can't be included in their budgets, but they found ways to do that. $380,000 of federal money is given to the Fall River Office of Economic Development. And here's the funny part about it. They have nothing to prove. They have nothing to prove, and if they don't have that money, they don't exist. HUD requires that an economic development person be hired by the city, and they pay for that. And so they are, to the tune of $380,000. And Mr. Dion, who now runs the CDA, says they've met the requirements as put forth by the federal government. Therefore, it's not my job to decide whether they're successful or not successful. I said in 20 years, they've never developed anything, performed anything. Well, they did create 500 jobs, but they lost 3,000. So where is it? And he goes, well, economic development's not as easy as everyone thinks. Well, you know what? I don't care how easy it is for people to think. The other problem I had was they spoke about hearings and input and surveys. Do you know I've never gotten any information on a survey or citizens' input? So I told him about that. He goes, well, we put it in the Herald News. I said, I don't subscribe to the Herald News. I said, neither do a lot of other people in Fall River. It's not worth it. Well, we took out ads on WSAR. I said, there are a lot of people that don't listen to WSAR. I said, you've got to find another way to get the message out to these people because nobody's getting it. And that could be a problem. And so he said, well, we need to meet and we'll talk about it. So I am going to meet with him and I'm going to talk about his budget and talk about where this money's going and how it happens. Because they're writing a 5-year plan that we're going to be locked into. So I think we need to know where our money's being spent, where that federal money's going.
Well, I think we need to know where all our money is going.
So do I. And it's very, very important. And so I think at this time, Chippa has a very big issue. And I wanted to give him as much time as possible, so I put it towards the end of the show here, because this affects a lot of retirees and a lot of city employees. And guess what? We're not saving money on it. Chip?
Yes, I went before the council yesterday because I am, for no money, the Public Employee Committee designee for the retirees all retirees in the city of Fall River, which represents the largest segment of people on the health care plan in the city. And as I said before the council, the health care plan that we have is not as good as the one we did have, and the city has saved a lot of money. But what has to be said first is that our health care plan was not given to us. I negotiated for for 24 years. We gave up pay raises. We took less pay raises in order to get better health care. That was a benefit that was negotiated. We paid for that benefit. Nobody gave us this health care. We earned it. We paid for it. And now the city, because it's in a financial catastrophe created by fiscal irresponsibility, again, they are going to balance the budget on the backs of the people. Now, They've begun by balancing the budget on the backs of all the taxpayers in this city by continually escalating taxes, by continually increasing fees. And now again, after 2 years ago, they went before the council and lied, or misrepresented, and said there was going to be a $4 million cost savings by going to a plan modeling or a GIC. And in fact, we have saved money. Now they're going and they want to change to the GIC to save an additional $5 million. So first let me explain, this is not a cost savings. This is a cost shift. There has been no renegotiation of any fees for doctors or operations or any medical procedure. This is merely taking $5 million out of the pockets of the people who pay for their health care and making the city $5 million richer by picking the pockets of people, some of whom that I represent are in their 80s and 90s and take 10 or 12 medications and are living on pensions of $12,000 a year. And it is catastrophic that they're considering this to make people have to choose between maybe eating and taking medications, or maybe not even being able to afford their medication. Especially in light of the fact, I will hold this up, this is the group benefit strategy report from the last Insurance Advisory Committee. And I am reading verbatim. This city, cumulatively, for all its health care plans, is running 6.9%, almost 7% under budget. We got an award for having the most efficient health care in the state. The retirees are running 11.5% under budget as a group. We're running at 88.5. We have $5.9 million in our trust fund, which means that these are from running under budget. And the city is supposed to have 3 times this amount somewhere, so that's almost 18 million. With all this money, and the 7% under budget this year is 3.1 million under the normal savings. With all this money and all this great handling of our health care, what do they do to the people in Fall River? They want to gut their health care system again and put us in a plan that's going to that can possibly make retirees pay 450% more for a doctor's visit, pay more for prescription drugs. The family plan for city employees right now, there's a $5,000 limit for out-of-pocket expenses. That limit will go to $10,000. We have people working in the city hall as clerks that are making $28,000 a year, that make so little money that they have to pay their health care premiums bi-weekly rather than monthly, because if they paid their monthly premium, they wouldn't have a paycheck. And this is what this city is doing to the people who work for it and do the real work, not sit in an office and get $20,000 a year pay raises and make $100,000. These are the people that when you walk in City Hall are standing there taking your bills, listening to your ire because you're not happy with how much you're paying for the water bill, while the people who are raping and pillaging this city are filling their wallets and laughing and balancing the budget on the people. Health care is one of the most important things, and it's far more important when you get elderly. It is unconscionable, it is unfathomable to me how this city can even entertain this fact, how this mayor and how this council can resort to something so contemptible as to do this, when we are basically the model for everyone in the state on how to run this. If this mayor came back and said we're running 80% over budget, we're going broke with our health care, well, maybe we could look at this issue. But to come in and do this when this is probably the only efficiently run thing in the city of Fall River, to me, is inexcusable. And I will not rest, and I will stay active on this, and I will work tirelessly to get every city councilor who doesn't vocally oppose this change out of office, and I will work to get rid of anybody who supports this change.
It's very interesting, you know, and we found this over and over again in Fall River. When you do your job right, you get penalized. But when you're a screw-up, you get a raise. If you don't do anything at all, you get a raise.
And an assistant.
And an assistant, that's true, and an assistant. And that's what I liked yesterday about Mr. Dion, because he was asked questions, how much money was given to this, how much money was given to that? And he had the numbers. He wasn't looking in papers, he had the numbers. When we ask our city treasurer how much money, I don't have that number, I'll have to go look it up. I'll get that back to you at a later date. The man who's handling the money doesn't have an idea, but a gentleman who's handling one small department knows every dime and everyone who gets it. So here's the, you know, insurance board or committee, whatever it may be called, the IAC, and they're doing the job right. They're saving money. They're operating under budget. So now it's time. Well, you know what? You guys are doing too good of a job. We gotta change that. You know, I mean, does it make any sense?
Well, no, it doesn't. And what makes even less sense, as you said, as our treasurer, Mr. Nunes, I don't know how he's still employed, because in the 18 months he's been in, a year and a half he's been here, I haven't heard him give an answer to any important question. And last night, someone asked if we had the money to do this park deal, and he said, yes, we do. And Councilor Pereira then said, wait a minute. At the last meeting, we were told we have a $16 million deficit. How can we afford this? And then everything went silent. So, I mean, what is, you know, as you said, it seems as though the more poorly you do your job, the better you do in this city, because here's a man who had the audacity to say we can afford anything. If I've got a 16 million, if I've got a $1,600 deficit in my account, I'm bankrupt, because nobody pays my bills. And for him to say that, what he was saying is, don't worry, we can pick the taxpayers' pockets again.
It seems the time just flies by, and I want to thank you for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. We're here to help you and to bring you the information. If you have any information, bring it to us over here. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.
Stay active.